Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bass Shed Podcast. My name's Ryan Roberts. How's everybody doing? I'm actually going to wait for you to respond. How you doing? You good? Uh-huh. Yeah. All right, cool. On the show with me today is Jayme Silverstein. Jayme is a multi-platinum selling record producer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. I initially met him as a bass player in New York years ago. Jayme has worked with Miguel, Alicia Keys, J. Cole, Snoop Dogg, Estelle, a whole lot of other people. And the conversation we had, I was really looking forward to doing it. We went long, so I'm going to release this as 2 episodes, and this is episode 1 with Jayme Silverstein.
All right, dope. We're live. So you got an interesting story.
I do?
Well, maybe not to you because you lived it. Like, I don't think mine's that interesting. It's just life.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm really fascinated, and we were just talking about this while I was setting up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated to have you in here because, like, when I reached out to you in the text thread, like right away, you're like, dude, thanks, but you sure? You sure you want me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because you got strong opinions about it. And it's not that you were unequipped to absolutely, like, you're a really talented musician. You're educated.
Mm-hmm.
You had some high-profile gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you were trying to do something that you were unequipped for. If anything, you were probably over-equipped for the work you do.
Thank you. That's very generous of you.
Yeah. No, I've heard you play, and it's like, damn, okay. Like, I remember when you got to town, and I'm like, all right, I know of him from New York. But then when I heard you play, I'm like, okay, yeah, Jayme can play.
Cool. Thank you.
And so how would you classify your, I agree with a lot of what you have to say, and we were talking about this too. But I'm going to let you put it in your own words. Where's your headspace at right now about bass playing? I'll start there.
Okay. Should we preface this by like who I am or anything like, or just go right into it?
I mean, I'm going to do a thing on the front end.
Okay.
We can talk about it. I do want to hear, like, let's actually get to.
See, that's a great question. I mean, we can do it. I just don't want people to be like,
okay,
let's
do that. Let's do that. Where's your head at bass playing, and then we'll go all the way back and talk about how you got there.
Okay.
So we'll start with the answer.
Okay, here's what I think about musicians.
Okay.
Okay, so like when jazz was big, jazz basically, like Miles Davis or Louis Armstrong before that, basically they were putting their spin on the popular music of the day. Right? And basically they were like playing relevant songs that people liked. They were just putting their spin on it. Mm-hmm. I just think the scene of local musicians we're playing songs that are 40, 50 years old. Like, no one gives a shit about Autumn Leaves. No one
within jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Even within jazz. And then when I came to town to get on gigs, it was actually pretty easy because I was like, okay, I just need to know Stevie Wonder songs and Michael Jackson songs.
Yeah, that's it.
But like,
Some
why?
Shaka.
Why weren't people learning songs of the day?
Like more history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like basically musicians. I feel like musicians don't have a healthy awareness or respect of what's going on today. So it's like a musician will go and he's just playing his funk licks.
Yeah.
That maybe he transcribed some Anthony Jackson or some Bootsy Collins or whatever it is, and it's like you're trying to fit that over. Well, I guess you're just playing the old music, but then when you do get a gig, when you do get a big pop gig or something, you're just like playing this vocabulary from the 70s over the new stuff.
Right.
And it's like, it's funny. I learned really quickly to be on a big gig, it's not about your playing.
Right.
It's about how cool you look.
Yeah.
Basically, you need to look
and
like
your
you're
connect that got you there?
Hmm?
And the connect that got you there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you got on that gig. The gig was Miguel.
Right.
We can talk about that.
Yeah.
And you worked with Miguel for how many years?
5 years.
Okay. And you got the gig because you knew the MD or you knew somebody else in the band?
Actually, the way I got the gig was interesting. I was living in New York, and basically I went to school out in New York, Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah.
And then I stayed for 3 years after that. So I had 7 years in New York. And
Did you graduate?
I did graduate.
Okay.
Kicking and screaming though.
Yeah. How'd you work in the school environment? Like, school's not for me.
Oh no. Basically, I was into it. I was into playing upright for 2 years, and then I was playing for years before that, obviously, to get into that school. But basically, I spent the summer in New York one time and was just like hustling gigs.
Yeah.
Like $30, $40, $50 gigs with my bass wheel at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I had to cart my amp. And I was just like, dude, this is no way to live. This is so fucking stupid. I can't believe anyone. Not that and obviously if you're a stand-up bass player and you're on the higher end of things, there are guys making a great living doing that. Sure. But I just didn't love it enough to sweat it out for those years coming up on those gigs.
The hustle of like the ins and outs of being a working musician, like the getting to gigs, the what do I got to wear, like all those little things, or the actual playing. Like once you were on the stage and you're like in it with cats you dig, it was cool. Or still just like eh.
I mean, electric bass has always been my thing.
Yeah.
Like basically, I started playing electric bass when I was 12. I was playing classical piano before that, which I hated. My mom made me do it.
Was that the first instrument?
Yeah.
Piano? Okay.
Yeah. And then 12, bass was my choice. And then junior year, I went to a public school, but we were like a really good music public school.
Yeah.
Agora High School.
Okay.
And my band director, John Mosley, he was like, Jayme, you play the bass pretty good, but if you want to be shit in this world, like you got to start playing upright and you got to get into Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, well, if you say so, I was just like blindly listening. And so then I dropped electric for a year or two and then got like decent at upright. I've never been the best upright player.
Man, it's such a demanding, unforgiving instrument.
Yeah.
Like even if you get some stuff together, you take like 2 days off.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you went back 3 years.
Yeah.
It's
also just like the position of like I'm the guy who's walking. I'm just like pounding out chord notes. I was like, I just feel like everyone's bitch. Like I just it's like the trumpet player gets to just play whatever the fuck he wants, and the piano player gets to go ape shit in jazz. And like I have to pound out roots and fifths, and like chromatic connecting tone. I was like, this isn't for me.
Wasn't for you. So let's go back. You're from Agora?
I was born in New York.
Okay, we're in New York.
Manhattan.
Okay.
Washington Heights.
Siblings?
Younger brother, yeah.
Okay. Any other musicians in the family? Like not professionally necessarily, but
if I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
Okay.
I'm related to James Brown.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope. How close?
I think he's my mom's cousin.
Oh, that's killing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never met him or anything.
Right.
But yeah, and then my uncle on my dad's side, he's a guitar teacher in Manhattan.
Okay. So it's in the family. So then, what was the music growing up?
Motown.
Like what was? Yeah.
Motown.
Okay. Motown.
Yeah,
old funk.
Yeah, my dad, my Jewish dad, he was just super into black music.
Yeah.
And really early on, he's like, Jayme, this is James Jamerson. Like, this is it right here.
Yeah.
And he just kind of started me on that.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's
and then after that, it was, he showed me Marvin Gaye.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I didn't know who I was listening to at the time, but, like, I just remember, like, rollerblading downstairs in the basement. My dad would be playing these soul records.
Yeah.
And
So were you playing piano yet, or this was pre-piano?
I was playing piano, but I was like playing Bach and Beethoven. It's
Whatever
like,
the teacher had you go through.
Yeah, like that hadn't connected yet.
Sure.
And then when I started playing bass when I was 12, my family moved to Agora, and I was into like skateboarding, and so like my first bass influences were actually like ska bands.
Okay.
Like Real Big Fish, the Hippos.
Yeah. Like mid to late 90s era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had like the Music Man Stingray.
Yeah.
And
the Sublime dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my shit. And then I was into Flea.
Of course.
Really my first serious bass influence though was Stuart Zender from Jamiroquai though.
Oh yeah.
He was the guy that I had like posters of him up in my room. I just like learned all his bass lines.
When he did Traveling Without Moving and Funk Odyssey, or Funk Odyssey was the guy the first record he was replaced on. I remember
that was the first one he was replaced on.
Okay.
But
Traveling Without Moving was amazing.
The ones before that were even better bass wise.
Oh really?
Yeah, Traveling Without Moving was like the best songwriting.
Yeah, yeah.
But Space Cowboy and
Right. I do have that. I haven't listened to that in
the
years.
one before that. Yeah, those man, he was just amazing to me.
Yeah, those lines are sick.
Yeah.
Right, and like he doesn't know the fretboard or something. There's something I remember reading about him that was pretty appalling. It's like all just ear.
Really?
Yeah, like he doesn't know. Now I could be completely wrong, and if he ever heard this, he'd be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But I seem to have it in my mind that he just doesn't know the notes on the fretboard. And whatever.
Man, however you do it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's a bass player in town. Who I probably shouldn't say his name, but he's like very proud about not knowing the fretboard. And he has like the biggest gigs.
Oh yeah.
Like the biggest gigs. like Queen Bee.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so you're growing up, you're listening to Motown.
Mm-hmm.
What age? That was 12 when you started playing?
Yeah.
Okay. So between 12 and Manhattan School of Music, are you taking bass lessons?
Yes.
Okay, you're taking bass lessons.
Mhm.
You got a ska band together with some buddies or something?
Actually, when I started a band, by that point we were really into like 311 and Incubus.
Oh yeah, Peanut.
Yeah.
I was talking about Peanut on another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peanut. Oh my God, I was so into him too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a band kind of like that, and at that time I was dabbling in jazz. So I remember I thought I was like changing the world by having like minor seventh chords instead of power chords. I was like, someday the world is gonna hear my musical. I thought I was like the next coming of something just for like putting sevenths in chords. Yeah. And then I went to New York and I was like, oh, I gotta figure out something else.
So what was it that got you into jazz? Was it a specific bass player or a record, or just the idea of like, I want to be good, and it seems like you got to be good to do it?
You know what? Exactly that.
That was it for me too.
It was kind of the virtuosity of like
I want to be a badass, and apparently you got to do that to be a badass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did genuinely love. There were some jazz albums that I did genuinely love. I mean, I did have my jazz time where I did love jazz. Yeah. But I mean, the first time I heard Kinda Blue, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yeah. And really, my jazz guy still, like, I still listen to him, is Wayne Shorter.
Oh yeah.
I just think he's the best writer out of all of them.
I love his
like basically Miles' music means a lot to me. Wayne's music means a lot to me, and Brian Blade Fellowship. Oof. That's like.
Do you have Mama Rosa? That record is my jam.
Yeah.
Where he sings on it.
Yeah, I was into the stuff like a few years before that.
Yeah, what's that? Right, I know the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was in college, he was playing at the Vanguard, and it was like $30 to get in. It was like so expensive for me back then. I was like the most broke college student, and I went and saw it twice, and he would I just never seen Brian Blade play before. Okay. And like the room would just stare at him the whole time. Yeah. It's like there'd be a band of like 9 people, and you would just be locked on Brian Blade. Yeah. Because like every hit on the drums meant so much to him. Yeah. It was like an emotional, cathartic thing. Like he'd crash on a cymbal, and it would just be like, like it's like I'd never seen someone love something as much as he loved playing the drums.
The first time I saw him play was at the Old Jazz Bakery here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were in town when it was still in like Culver City.
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So I saw him play there with Patitucci Trio. Mm-hmm. And like it was amazing. Yeah. Like and of all the records I have him on, him live is a completely different thing. Right. And every time I had gone to the bakery to see Heroes play, it's like, yeah, that's cool, and they sound exactly like the record. Like exactly like the record live. But not Blade. Like Blade was just like something completely different live.
He's just so special.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I should mention the other jazz records that really floored me was what Wynton was doing in the 80s. Okay. Like Black Codes from the Underground, all that shit.
Right, I've listened to some of those. I don't think I have any of those. Like that period of music, that period of jazz, the 80s thing. I never really found anything that...
You got to check it out.
Yeah?
So you never like got into Jeff Tain Watts?
I mean, like I've heard it. You know, but
he was literally just like Elvin Jones on PCP. Yeah. Like it's so crazy what he does.
I got hip to him first because of Brecker Records.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was like just after that, like the early 90s, when Brecker was doing those records with like Dave Holland and DeJohnette and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so that's where you're at. You're learning jazz.
Mm-hmm.
This is before you get to Manhattan. What else is happening musically? You still playing piano at all?
I mean, I have to take piano in school, so
Before you get to school. No, between like 12 and Manhattan, that period of time. Getting into jazz for the first time.
Yeah, I'm just transcribing records.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm feeling a lot of self-esteem because I was naturally good at the bass. Like I learned it really quickly.
Yeah.
And I was like a chubby kid who like wasn't good at skateboarding and I like wasn't good at sports.
Sure.
So bass was really the first thing that I was good at.
Yeah.
And like everybody knew it. Like I had respect around school and like people wanted to play with me. And
it's funny, same here. Like I just couldn't lock in anywhere else. But then this, like I found like I hit my thing. Yeah. Yeah. And then being a musician just tore me down, actually. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
It's so sad how that happens. All right, so you're feeling like you found your thing in life and you're pursuing it.
Yeah.
You get to Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting. What age did you start Upright? 2 years before Manhattan?
Yeah, so probably like 16 years old.
Okay. Did you do all the classical rep too, or just like straight to jazz?
Just straight to jazz.
Okay.
I didn't give a shit about classical
music. Right. I think it's great when I hear it done.
Yeah.
Like I love solo bass rep and all that stuff. I don't think I have the thing to like stick it out and shed it.
Well, to me, like I
do love it.
For me, and I'm gonna sound like such an asshole, but
it's a safe space.
Okay, cool. I just don't understand why anyone would want to wake up and just like play someone else's ideas note for note.
That's
like if that's the thing that makes you just want to wake up and just like that's your connection to music. I just don't get it.
Right.
Like if I have I get why Ravel or Debussy or Stravinsky, like I get what makes them want to wake up. Like they're just pouring ideas out of their heart and their brain onto the page, and then they hear it back from the world's best musicians. Like that's fucking awesome.
And they're writing for this big group, and there's so much power in it.
Yeah, but if you're like cello 3, like I just like no disrespect to cello players.
No,
like
especially not cello 3. Like someone's making a living playing cello 3.
Exactly, but like I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And like he wakes up and he's excited to play music that's 300 years old.
Yeah.
Like I just.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious about that too. And there's a friend of mine who I'm going to get on doing a podcast, and he's assistant principal in a symphony. I won't say which one because if the podcast doesn't work out, whatever. But I want to talk to him about that because his undergrad, his master's was in jazz, and then his doctorate was in classical, I think. It's like, man, why? Like,
yeah, And it's funny, when I was in college, Manhattan School of Music was half. They had a classical division and a jazz division, and it's freshman year. Like everyone's wilding out, everyone's fucking, everyone's drinking, everyone's doing their thing.
Like a lot of cats, the first time they're away from home and they're in New York and there's party mode.
Yeah, but really the classical kids went so hard. Like the classical kids would be puking all over the floor, sleeping in the hallway.
All their
orgies.
repression is being...
all the repression of being classical music. The jazz guys, we would just like drink whiskey and play poker. And,
right, and it's just
like
another
watch
Tuesday.
Foreign movies. Yeah. Like just on some cool shit. The classical musicians would go ape shit. Like, and I can't help but think that like, the jazz musicians were expressing ourselves all the time.
Sure.
So like, I'll just chill out and have a sandwich and watch a movie with my buddies. Whereas the classical musicians, it's like they're being told what to do, probably in like a pretty aggressive, demeaning way, 24/7.
Sure.
And then it's like on the weekend they just fucking go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the mind of a classical musician works or like what the emotional makeup of it is, but there's a perfectionist aspect even in the jazz musician. You have to nail this thing. This thing has to feel a certain way.
Sure.
Or people beating themselves up about how they're making changes or not. But there's not. I don't think it's held to a more individual standard.
Right.
Right. Like you play the changes like you want to play the changes as long as you're not losing the form and you got the bases covered. The classical thing, I don't know. I don't understand it. Like it's the same kind of mentality that like maybe a suburban household has. You know what I mean? Like I can't connect with it because I don't have it. I don't know what that's like to wake up every day in a house you own and go to the same job, and have a couple kids, and like that life is foreign to me. And I think the same about classical musicians.
Well, I've talked to them about it because I've honestly asked the question because it's bewildered me ever since I was aware of.
Did you ever get like an honest, like really guttural?
Well, they said that there is room for expression, and I didn't want to like further demean them by like, what do you mean, like when you switch bow or something? Like,
yeah.
Like
right, if you're going up bow or down bow. Like
yeah, but actually, I don't even think they can do that because, like, for instance, I'm a left-handed bass player.
Yeah.
And at one point, I was taking classical lessons at Manhattan just because I wanted to get my technique better.
With Oren?
Who?
Oren O'Brien, because she was there, right?
No. David, I forget his name, but he even told me, he's like, look, if you get good, that's fine, but like you'll never be in an orchestra. And I was like, oh. He's like, yeah, you're left-handed. Like that would just be such a clusterfuck.
Oh, because of the way your bow's going.
Yeah, he's like, you'll just never work as a classical musician unless you want to switch right now. I was like, no.
No, I don't.
Yeah, so.
Huh. Yeah, that's kind of a buzzkill too. Like,
no love lost.
Maybe not. Yeah. Right. It wasn't your thing.
Yeah.
So you're at Manhattan. You study jazz in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting deeper into the music at this point, what did this do to your emotional attachment to the music? Did school burn you out on it a little bit, or did you start to uncover it as you were learning it, and you're like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff here and you fell in love with it more?
Man.
Or because school can burn you out. Like I got burnt out several times. Yeah,
I was such an asshole in school. Like the teachers did not like me. There was one teacher who really did help me out though. Gerard D'Angelo. He was my improv teacher. Actually, it's funny. I always seem to forget this, but this a very pivotal moment for me in school was I got tendinitis.
Ooh.
And basically sophomore year. So basically, I come in freshman year, and I'm like the best bass player coming from Agora. Mm-hmm. But then, you go to this high-level conservatory, and then you realize very quickly that the best people from all over the world are now here.
Right.
And I wasn't one of the stronger kids freshman year at all.
Sure.
And then the summer of sophomore year, I went to Brevard Jazz Academy. It was like the summer camp for jazz musicians. And I actually started to like step into my own a bit on the bass, and like people started to notice me, and the older cats wanted to play with me.
Oh, dope.
And then sophomore year, I was like super, super, super into it. And then I had that summer where I stayed there, and I was like, oh, this is the life of the jazz musician. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And then coincidentally, I also got tendinitis.
Okay.
Around that time, and that was crazy. I went from playing like 6 hours a day to you've got to take a month off. Then you can play for a minute a day. You can play for 5 minutes a day.
Build it back up.
10 minutes a day. And it took months to get it back. Like I would have recitals or like performances to do that I wasn't even able to practice for.
Yeah.
Because if the recital was an hour, there's my hour for that day.
Yeah.
So and even by senior year, it was definitely something that I was still nursing.
Okay.
And then I kind of just took that as like the universe telling me like this isn't your instrument.
Isn't it. Do you still feel it at all? Like things flare up?
I think if I started practicing upright again, probably. Yeah. Probably I would.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever like totally heal from that.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a teacher that had it once, and he was on like some meds for it, but I don't know what happened.
But
he was also like old and wasn't playing regularly. So it's not like he was playing 4 or 5 nights a week and still had to deal with his tendinitis.
Yeah. But yeah, to continue my my experience in school. So after the tendinitis, I started to play electric more just because it was less demanding physically.
Absolutely.
And the way that the students and teachers reacted to it was like super not cool.
They looked down on you?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And there were the kids that were into it, like the kind of fusion kids or the kids that were listening to R&B and gospel and all that kind of stuff.
But there wasn't like a kind of a nature of progressive jazz teachers there or anything?
Oh, hell no.
That were just like, yeah, that's, part of this music too.
No, absolutely not. They, in fact, during my recital, one of my recitals, I was playing electric, and they just like weren't into it. And I'll be honest, I had a really shitty attitude because I knew they weren't going to be into it. And I was like, whatever, fuck them.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely had this attitude of like, my parents are paying your salaries.
Right.
I should at least get to learn what I want to learn.
Yeah.
Like this shit costs over $100,000.
Right.
Like I at least want to learn what I want to learn, you know?
Sure.
And they didn't like that. But I remember one teacher actually told me, she said, Jayme, I don't think you paid attention when you were applying for schools because this is a conservatory. Think about what the title conservatory means. We're trying to conserve the art of jazz.
Okay.
We're not necessarily trying to push it forward. We're trying to conserve it.
And that's such a funny thing to me, right? They're trying to conserve a bunch of dudes who are pushing it forward.
Yeah.
What they're conserving is the idea of pushing it forward.
Well, they want to conserve the spirit of pushing it forward from 1930 to 1970 something.
Right. Yeah.
So like if you're pushing it forward a la Ron Carter or a la Slam Stewart or Ray Brown, like great, good on you.
Yeah.
But if you're pushing it forward like Jaco Pastorius,
right,
who also played with Wayne Shorter as well as Ron Carter, it's like they just weren't having it.
Yeah. I just finished this whole blog post about Jimmy Blanton.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't know much about the dude, and I went all the way back, like the original dudes. And it's funny that when you think about preserving and anything that is going to preserve the nature, like this music, from what I know, I'm not a jazz historian, but it progressed so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from like 1910 to, I don't know, whatever, let's say 70s, when electronic music came out and funk got involved and, a lot of those crossover records were kind of coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd call them a crossover record, but that's the 70s. So in 60 years, like this music both began and then petered out or stopped being culturally relevant.
Well, I think as it became, dare I say, more masturbatory.
Sure.
That's when it started to peter out. I mean,
you think that happened to bebop?
Yeah. Well, no, but people still, because Miles was still big like decades after bebop,
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, like Louis Armstrong was playing from a totally different spirit than Miles was.
Absolutely.
Like Louis was like, this ray of joy, and he wanted to entertain people, and he was here for the people. And like Miles would play with his back to the audience. He's like, if you're not cool enough to get this, then fuck you.
Right.
And that became the ethos of jazz.
Yeah.
And that's why people like don't care about it today.
Sure. Yeah. I mean I love the nature of what it should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is this kind of personal expression
Mm-hmm.
in a communal sense, and everybody working together, and the social aspects of it, and the fact that it's so American.
Right.
Those are things I love about it, and in the improvisation, creating on the spot, love that stuff.
Yeah.
But this elitism thing,
Sure.
about it, and I had a couple failed attempts at school, and I wanted to go to a school in New York specifically to study with teachers. Like I would only apply at the school where I wanted to study with the guy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. I don't know if I could really. I don't think I would have survived. One, I don't think I would have survived New York at that age. Like, I would have tried to keep up with New York. Yeah. And I would have died.
Yeah, it can get pretty depressing.
I tried to do it my first couple years in L.A. Like I tried to keep up with L.A. And that didn't go well.
Well, I think you just find your circle and you find.
Yeah. Back to the elitism thing. Yeah. I do have a hard time with that in jazz, and because I don't know, it doesn't need to happen at all. Like, at what point did it turn in to this music that came from the trenches and like really, kind of people in some rough stuff in life who had something to say, but it was also an escape for them to check me out. Like I don't know where that line happened. But it happened. And it's so uninteresting.
Yeah, well, also, one of the lamest things about jazz is the only people that go to see jazz are musicians.
Right.
So it's like you're playing and then everybody's kind of like transcribing you as they listen, and it's just like, this isn't what music's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a form of music, but
if someone can connect with it, that's cool. I mean, you know, it's all about, I think music is about different people in different places. So if people connect with this thing for whatever reason, that's great. I don't a lot. Yeah. I don't connect with a lot of modern jazz.
Yeah, and like I said, there are jazz artists that I absolutely love.
Sure, me
but
too.
You know, it's very few and far between.
Yeah.
Like I remember I saw this jazz concert. This guitarist. I mean, I don't fucking know this guy. Whatever, it's Adam Rogers.
Okay.
And
no, I mean I know of him.
Yeah,
I don't know him personally.
Yeah, I don't know him personally. Dude, I remember I was at the Jazz Gallery, and this guy took upwards of 9 choruses on Body and Soul. Like it was like a slow ballad, right?
Sure.
And you know, you go to the Jazz Gallery, and I think they play hour sets.
Okay.
He spent 20 minutes on a ballad.
Sure.
And I was just thinking, I was like, what a fucking asshole. Yeah. Like this guy is such a selfish asshole to make people listen to him just like nut all over a ballad. Like you really think you're saying something? Like it's like I just couldn't believe it. That was one of the moments that made me hate jazz.
Okay.
And if he's listening, like, yeah.
Oh yeah, come at me, bro.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's just like that's like the spirit that makes you do that is like that's everything that's wrong with the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know him. I feel bad judging him. Like whatever. He's made a career doing that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, people like it. And to be honest, I went to go see him because I had a bunch of his albums. Like I totally loved his shit.
Yeah.
But that just like left such a bad taste in my mouth for jazz. I was like, I don't want any part of this.
So like even as a jazz musician at this time, how old were you? Were you going to school? So you're a jazz student, or this is after school?
No, after school I was like done with jazz.
Okay.
I was done with jazz by senior year of school. In fact, I wanted to drop out.
So after the tendonitis and after the upright thing was kind of like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Jazz went away with the upright.
Pretty much. I mean, I got called to go on a tour. I wanted to drop out of school, but my parents wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I was like, but I'm going to school so I get good enough to get called for tours like this.
Sure.
So like, I just finished early, like met my goal.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, no, you know, we want you to have a degree. And I was just thinking to myself, like, a degree in jazz bass? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
I know I sound like so ungrateful, but
what do your parents do professionally?
My dad is a radio promoter. Like, basically, he gets records from record labels played on the radio.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. So I grew up with music, and then my mom's stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
But like, to be honest, if and when I ever have kids, if they want to pursue music, I'd have them go to school for 1 year.
Yeah.
So they can have the experience of like, freshman year drinking, fucking all that stuff. Because like that, you know, that happens like only once in your life unless you go on tour. Then it's your life. But I would say like pick a city.
Yeah.
Like pick a style of music first off, because no one really wants a jack of all trades. Like pick the thing that you're going to be the best at. You can go to school for a year, and then I would just give them money to live. Like, here's your rent money, here's your food money, and here's your money to go network.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to go out at least 4 times a week.
Right.
Tell me what you're doing. Check in with me, and I guarantee you, my child would go farther than any student in
my
town.
Yeah, like not on some debauchery, but on some like, yo, show up, don't get crazy, and like be purposeful about your hangs. Yeah,
like whoever you want to say it's Christian McBride. Like, go see Christian show. Here's $50. Get him a drink.
Right.
Talk to him.
Yeah.
And like what my child would learn just from like, first off, he'd be the best networker, which is everything now.
Right. And
he would just get into all the scenes, and he'd start hanging and playing with better people. I mean, he'd be so much further ahead than anyone.
He'd be grandfathered in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, you know, way better than the degree, unless he wants to teach, you know, at a university.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know. I don't even know what that's like anymore. You know, like that has to be because of internet. And I mean, I can't be hypocritical. Like I'm doing it with this. I'm releasing lessons.
Sure.
They can get stuff at a university, but even the dudes at the university are doing the online thing. So what is institutionalized education going to be like for the arts? Like,
yeah. And you know what's funny is like you can get a degree so you can hopefully teach at a university, but they're just going to hire the dude who's
who can poll the students.
Yeah, like didn't some school give Wayne Shorter an honorary doctorate?
That was recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, recently. It's like he didn't go to school, but like that's who anyone would want to study with.
Right.
Not the dude who like went through the system and dotted his eyes and crossed his T's, and like who wants to study with that motherfucker?
Right. Exactly. Like you want to do somebody who is a creative force.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think if I remember correctly, Patitucci doesn't have a degree. I remember I spoke to him about that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. I studied with a dude named Joel DeBartolo, who was the bass player on the Carson show, the whole run of the show.
Okay.
And when he moved to Arizona, he was trying to get a teaching gig, and they're like, "Yeah, no." But like,
it's
what?
Hilarious.
Like he's been on TV every night.
Yeah.
You know, every weeknight for 25 years. Top Call LA session guy, all that stuff, and like they wouldn't give him a gig. Eventually they did. He got the gig, but it was a pain. There's a lot of politics there, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so you get burnt out on jazz around senior year. What are you doing the 3 years after you graduate in New York? You just playing gigs? Are you getting into production and songwriting?
I started getting into production while I was in school.
Okay. Like on the side or through classes and stuff? I mean, I doubt they had classes.
There was one class, but it was super remedial.
Okay.
And it was like teaching you digital performer, and I was like, dude, no one uses digital performer.
Right.
I'll stick to Logic, thank you.
Yeah.
And,
but did you have like some homies already on the scene in New York who were like doing it and turning out music and producing?
No, I was literally the only person. I think I had like maybe 2 friends, but we all sucked. Like we were just learning.
Okay.
But basically, so I was just a total punk ass in school, and there was one teacher who actually cared enough about me to say, Jayme, I know you don't want to do this. What do you actually want to do?
Oh man,
like,
that's amazing.
Like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, I want to play bass, I want to go on tour, and I want to produce. And shout out to Gerard D'Angelo if you ever hear this. Like, you were amazing to me.
Great.
And he said, this is what we're gonna do. Don't disrespect me in class. And I never disrespected him. I was I didn't really try to disrespect any of the teachers. Sound like a fucking asshole. But,
it just came natural.
he was basically like, he's like, respect the lesson plan. Like, don't talk down to it because there are people in the class that care about it.
Yeah.
Even though you don't care about 30 courses of Eternal Triangle. Like, you know, he's like, just try to be enthusiastic for the other students.
Sure.
And then he said, I want to hook you up with one of my good friends, Gary Haas, who was the music director for Shaka Khan for a bunch of years. Okay. Amazing bass player and producer. Yeah. He's like, I want you to go over to his house twice a week. I'll call him, and here's his address.
That's what's up.
Yeah. So he was the only one that like cared enough to ask me what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I went over there, and Gary would have me play bass on records, and he'd be like, all right, I'm gonna sit here and smoke this joint. Like, you make a beat.
Okay.
You know, and like he would just teach me stuff.
Yeah.
And he was super cool. And, you know, he would give me like little gigs. He'd be like, hey, if you take my bass from 86th Street, which was his place, down to the Theater District. I'm playing Lion King tonight. I'll give you $50.
Oh, just doing cards for him.
Yeah, and he would just like throw me little things like that because I was super broke.
Yeah.
And
but that's dope. Then you're in it. You're doing it with the real guys, and you're around the real scene. And
yeah. And then one of my first gigs in New York, was with one of his friends. There was this young R&B group, and he told them about me, and I went out to go see their show, and basically they liked me and they liked my playing, and then that's how I actually got my first gospel gig. I got my first church gig.
Yeah.
Because the drummer of that group was like, oh, you can play, and me in church was just like, that's a whole nother thing, because I was never religious.
Okay.
And I was approaching church as a gig, and like they were not about that at all.
No.
You know, and I got enough shit because my last name is Silverstein. So, but
how big was the band? Was it just like a trio, like drums, bass, organ?
Drums, bass, organ, and like auxiliary keys.
Okay.
Sometimes there'd be a guitarist.
Yeah.
But yeah, and playing in church, that was a whole different thing because like I thought I was hot shit coming from Manhattan School of Music, and like, dude, you know, my ear is so good and all this kind of stuff. Man, I got my ass kicked.
Me and Yaji Hamden have talked about this like so many times.
Yeah.
Like that should be part of schooling.
Yeah.
Where you have to go hustle your own church gig.
Yeah.
And that's the only gig you can hustle. But it'll teach you the hustle
right.
of getting your gigs, and that's the gig you need to learn.
Right.
Like that Because they play by a different set of rules there.
Yeah, and also the church musicians are the ones that are on the pop gigs.
Right.
Like the gigs you want that are going to pay, they're the ones that
Yeah.
have those.
Right.
Even though they overplay on everything.
Yeah.
which is hilarious. But yeah, so I was getting my ass kicked for like a good solid year because I didn't grow up listening to church music at all.
Sure.
I grew up listening to, R&B and soul, so I had the touch.
Right.
But I just didn't have the vocabulary.
Sure.
And
that church music, I don't know about what that church was like, but that is a different vocabulary than just like all the old records that are influenced by, the blues and the culture and all those old spirituals.
Well, totally.
So it comes from the origin of the old spirituals through the blues, through jazz, into Motown, all that thing. By the time it gets to those records, it's changed. And then the church guys take it somewhere else, and it becomes very, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get a bunch of hate mail for this, but it becomes very instrumentalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But one bass player, like classic R&B soul bass player, Anthony Jackson,
Yeah.
I would say he is so influential to the gospel scene.
Okay.
In fact, probably one of my top 3 bass players of all time, Cher Lloyd. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not.
Oh, dude, you got to look him up. He's like the most monstrous. I'd say him and Derek Hodge are like the most monstrous bass players. Yeah. And Cher he has so much Anthony Jackson in him, and he's like this gospel bass player. He played for R. Kelly for a bunch of years, and now he plays for Corey Henry.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, and he's just like, I think he's the baddest bass player. Like he's just the best, and he has so much Anthony Jackson in him.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most influential gospel guys. Like gospel guys look to him.
Okay.
So, that's
more than like Goucher. Like, I feel like in timeline, Anthony Jackson is older than Goucher. I don't actually know.
Anthony's definitely older than Goucher.
Yeah. I don't know how old either of them are.
To me, I don't know. I prefer Cher's playing.
Okay.
And they also they sound so different. Like I think Cher is from Chicago. Like that whole Chicago scene of bass playing. Like Ethan out here,
Right.
Ethan Farmer, Damo, Eric Ingram, Cher, Maurice Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Like that's just a whole scene. Like Andrew Goucher to me is so West Coast.
Right.
Which is awesome. But the Chicago thing, like
it comes from a different place, and I'm super captivated by American geography and how like the city, like the Memphis guys got a thing, with like Brandon Brown.
Yeah.
Like all those dudes got a vibe. Like the Chicago guys got a vibe.
Yeah.
Some of the Miami guys got a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I dig that.
Yeah, definitely. And that happens in all the genres. Like hip hop, it's like the most obvious,
Right.
But yeah, so I did the church thing for a while, and then I realized pretty quickly that knowing the church musicians was going to be my way onto a gig.
Okay. And that's kind of what your end game at the time is like get on a big gig.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And at that point, I always knew that I wanted to produce, but I thought I was going to produce like, in my 30s, which is exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
But I thought bass was going to like help me produce. And I guess kind of because it got me Grammy nominated, but like they're like basically people don't assume like, oh yeah, Jayme's an awesome bass player. He must be an awesome producer.
Right.
It's like they don't assume that. And they shouldn't because they're totally ancillary skills.
Absolutely.
But so I was doing the church thing, and from the church thing, I started doing like open mics and playing with all the local artists, and then I started getting some better gigs. Like I played with Roberta Flack, and I subbed with Estelle. My friend DJ Ginyard, amazing bass player, another lefty. I subbed for him. It was his gig, and
were these one-offs, or were you doing like little runs on the East Coast with them?
These were just one-offs, to be honest, and that was ultimately why I moved back to LA, because like I was at the level, or at least I thought I was at the level of my friends who had gigs, and they were all older than me. Like DJ's older than me. Nate Jones out in New York, he's had the Trey Songz gig for like over 10 years, I think.
Oh damn.
And then there's this other guy in New York, Mitch Cohen, who he's the MD for Chris Brown.
Okay.
He's just done so well for himself. But basically I was like the next generation, and like they weren't really letting me in.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I had a friend that I went to high school with, and actually, we should talk about Jocko.
Let's do it.
So my friend Jocko Caraco, He
What is that? His real first name?
that's his real name, Jocko Caraco.
Wow, but you got to wonder what the parents were thinking there.
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
with the rhyming first names, like I don't know. That's a different topic. Like, what are you doing to your kid? But whatever.
He's one of the most amazing people I know,
Okay.
and
And I'm not talking shit on the guy. Like, I don't know him. I just always find it funny when
oh yeah, everybody
first-
comments.
yeah.
Everybody comments on his name. But basically, me and Jocko were in a band together when we were in high school. We were in.
What's he play?
He played guitar in the band.
Okay.
He was like the Steve Vai shredder kind of guitarist.
Yeah, power trio dude.
Yeah, and but he played jazz sax
Okay.
in the band.
And
he was-
shredder guitar.
Yeah, and he was like, "No, they're good on sax."
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, so I get ready to go to Manhattan School of Music, and he goes to USC.
Okay.
And after our first year of, and the listeners, you guys will see how this all ties in. This is gonna be an amazing story. This totally shapes the way that I see music right now. But okay, so we take it back to freshman
that was
year.
the original question, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So take it back to freshman year, and I think I'm hot shit. I'm like learning odd time signatures and all these solo transcriptions and all this stuff. And then I call up my friend Jocko. It's spring break. I come back. I'm like, "Hey Jocko, what have you been up to, man? Like, let me show you this heavy shit I've been doing,
Right,
you know?"
check me out.
And he's like, "Man, I got to be honest. I've just been like just wearing my guitar low, and and I just like practice moving around in the mirror. Sometimes I don't even plug in." And I was like, "What the like?" It was so sacrilegious to me. Like I was so into my shit.
Right.
And he's like, "Man, I've just been going on all these auditions. Like, guys like my look because he had long hair.
Okay.
And he dressed like who's the guitarist of Bon Jovi?
Richie Sambora.
He looks like that.
Okay.
And basically he goes to all these auditions. He started winning some auditions, and he started getting like really good paying pop gigs. And within 2 or 3 years, he got the Miley Cyrus gig.
Okay.
So by junior year, I'm like just sweating it out, just like doing recitals at the Manhattan School of Music Coffee House, and he's like buying a house in Calabasas.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I was just like, just got like kind of pissed about it. Like,
Right.
what the fuck am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
And
Right, because there's no way this is gonna equal.
no,
Yeah, that.
not at all. And here's the kicker for all of it. I remember I came back to California one time on a break, and I'm at Jocko's house. I'm sleeping on his couch, his fucking house that he owns.
Right.
And we're just hanging, we're smoking weed. And I'm like staying over, and I just asked him. I was like, "Dude, who are you?" You know what I mean? Because basically, when we were in school together, he was like this band nerd, and he played baseball. And now he's just like this cool dude who like can work the room, and he's an amazing networker and all
Yeah.
this shit. And here I am, still the nerd, like wondering where my nerdy friend went.
Yeah.
And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "I realized really quickly that my personality and my skill set wasn't going to get me the things I wanted in life. So I created a character who could."
Oh man, that's deep.
Yeah, it's also kind of sociopathic, but
Yeah, I'd have a lot of questions about that. What's he up to now?
I think he's producing and like he does a lot of stuff for Sync.
Okay.
So like movies and television.
Sure.
And I'm
How long did he ride that out with just being a road guy?
I think he still does it,
Okay.
to be honest.
Okay. I never met him in town.
Yeah.
But if he's out all the time, that explains it.
Yeah, he's either out all the time or traveling or whatever he's doing. But
Right.
yeah, he basically just like he saw the game from bird's eye view faster than anyone.
Right. How old was he? How old were you? You guys the same age?
We're the same age.
Okay, and how old were you then?
When he got his house?
Well, when he dropped that knowledge about
Oh,
and I don't know if that's knowledge about creating a character, but I do think there's some knowledge in
it was knowledge it was knowledge for me. I'd never heard anything like that. Like to me, the business of music was like being the dopest.
yeah.
And then so to hear that there was more to the game than just like practicing the most and knowing the most crazy, like to know that there was just levels, like it just blew my mind.
Right.
And he just knew that like years before anyone that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's where you're at then. Like that's the headspace. It's like you're seeing it from this kind of bird's eye view, but you get the gig. You get the big gig.
Miguel, you're talking about. Well, yeah. Oh, so you were asking me how I got the Miguel gig initially.
Yes.
So
Well, and your overall headspace about music, and so that's. Let's come back to that. So, are you see the game for what it is? And
I think I'm starting to, but
Jocko had it right, like Jocko Caraco, not Pastorius.
Yeah.
Understood it and did it, and it worked well for him. And now, how much of that did you adopt? How much you're like, oh man, yeah, he's got it together. I have to do that. Like I have to shed my character chops.
You know what? I still don't do it.
Right.
I still like one of my idols is Kobe Bryant, because I know that I have kind of not a grating personality. Like, you know, I'm kind of an acquired taste. Like, I'm sure I've offended some people, and I'm sure some people are like, fuck yeah, like, this guy gets it, you know?
Right, either you're going to love him or hate it. There's no impartial.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's all right.
Yeah. So like, business partners today, like in the producing world that I'm in, they're like, Jayme just doesn't play the game, so he's not going to this meeting.
Right.
Like when it's time to like be straight shooter and make everyone laugh and all that kind of stuff, like Jayme can go to that meeting.
Okay.
But when it's time to like finesse things a bit,
right.
they're like Jayme, we're doing this today, but you're not coming.
Right. There's not a chair at the table for you.
And there's no argument because
you don't want to be there anyway. I would hate that.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I'm no finesser.
Right.
Even today with artists that I work with, like if they ask me if they like the song, it's hard for me to, you know, because I can't lie. Like every song that I do, I don't love. Like sometimes an artist is like, oh, I want to take it in this direction, or you know, thank you for your input, Jayme, but I am going to do this. Like help me do this, and you know, I don't love everything. Like you don't love every bass gig you've ever done.
No.
You know.
No, I don't love every gig I'm on. You know,
Yeah.
or like everybody in the band that I'm playing with.
Yeah, I mean that's like a common misconception for non-music people. They're like, oh, your job must be so amazing. You just get to make music all day.
Right.
Yeah, until you make music you don't like. That's definitely a fucking job.
With dudes that are hard to work with.
Yeah.
Like then it just gets old.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll save the darkness because I'll end up there with you. Okay, so where are we at in the timeline? Jocko drops the knowledge. You're out here doing gigs. You're out here on spring break, but you're still living in New York?
Still living in New York, but then...
And still working with that producer back there and just kind of being a lackey and hoping you're going to work your way up kind of this organic way on the scene.
Right. And then... So basically, my second year out of school is when I played with Roberta Flack, and I thought I was going to get that gig, but I think she was like, he's too young and whatever, so she kind of passed me. I did one.
That's still amazing, though, like just to connect with that lineage of music. And,
yeah, it was really cool. And then a few months later, I did a week at South by Southwest with Estelle, and Estelle was big back then. Yeah, she had American Boy, so that was Estelle and Roberta Flack were like the biggest things I had done so far, and and I had that on my resume, and I was telling people, and just like having that leverage, because like I remember being in LA. To fast forward a little bit, it's like when you kind of fluff up your resume so you can get into better rooms, and then once I was able to like not have to fluff a bit, it was like a game changer. Right. Like people really saw me differently after Miguel. But
how did you feel about that? Like when people were giving you different attention just because of your gig, but it doesn't mean you were playing any different or you were any real different of a musician. Yeah. But like cats are not giving you respect just because of somebody else's name and not yours. Like it's not based on your merit, it's based on your association. Did you get pissed about that?
No, I didn't get pissed. I would laugh. Yeah. Because I'd see it immediately. But the bottom line is like, are they bad people for it? Like human psychology is what it is. Yeah. Right. You know, just because everybody's trying to step up and you know,
definitely out here,
especially out here. Yeah. But no, I can't get mad about that. Okay. LA just happens to be like the worst town in the world for that. But
sure. Or the best, depending on perspective. It is the most frequent in this town, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the town where like you'll be talking to someone at a party and they're looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, to see what's up.
To see who else they could.
Unless you can drop some names super quick to hold them.
Right. But I mean, I've been on both sides of that coin, and I mean, it definitely feels better to be on the other side. I'll tell you that.
When you're getting the respect.
No, when you're getting the respect.
When you're getting the respect because you had the big gig.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And now I'm, working my way back to that place as a producer.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, New York. I do the 1 week with Estelle, and then after that, for the next year, like nothing really came up. And I was like, did I peak in New York? Like I wasn't hearing about any auditions or anything. It was just like, man, is New York drying up for me?
What year was this?
2012.
Okay.
2011 or 2012.
Okay.
And then through my church connections, I heard of one audition. Actually, my whole time in New York, I think I went on 3 auditions, like literally 3. I was there for 7 years.
Yeah.
I auditioned for this girl named Erica Kane, which I actually got, but but they ended up firing me because like they were all kind of like hood dudes and I wasn't hood enough. Okay. And they just didn't like me, even though they liked my playing. But
were they the band based out of New York? Like everybody from New York, or was it like some LA hood guys?
No, it was like New Jersey hood dudes.
Okay.
And they just, I don't know, I didn't have the right look.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't thug enough?
Yeah, I guess not. And then I auditioned for Joe Thomas, the R&B guy. I didn't get that gig. And then I auditioned for Lady Gaga.
Oh, dope.
And I obviously didn't get that gig.
Right.
But there I met this guy, Steve Styles, who also didn't get the gig. But he now is the music director for Demi Lovato. So he's doing good.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
He's not mad about it. And I had heard of Steve Styles. His reputation preceded him because he was like the generation before the Nate Jones and the Mitch Cohens and the guys in New York that were like really doing it. Yeah. And what I knew of him is he left New York and moved to LA, and he was playing bass for Britney Spears when Britney was big. Okay. So he was a little older, and I met him, and me and him just hit it off, and like he drove me home from the audition back to Harlem in his Lexus, and I was like, man, this guy, he's so successful as a bass player. Like I'd never seen a musician live the way not live, but I was in his car, but I'd never seen that before in New York. I had my friend Jocko at home who was like killing it, but all the New York guys were like taking the subway and had their apartments in Harlem, and it's like no one was like really living that good. Yeah, yeah. But here, this guy's like driving me home in his new Lexus, and I was like, oh shit. Okay. And then, me and him just like kind of stay in touch, whatever, and nothing crazy. Like he never, I don't think I ever saw him again until years later after the Miguel thing. But basically, I moved to LA, and then I'm messaging him on Facebook. And I was just like, hey, man, what's going on? Haven't heard from you in a while. He's like, oh, what's up? And then out of the blue, he just asked me, he goes, hey, I remember you told me one time that you like San Francisco, like just randomly. And he's like, this guy Miguel has a gig in San Francisco, and I can't make it. Do you want to do it? And I was like, sure. And I knew who Miguel was, but he wasn't big or anything back then. Okay. And I was like, sure, how come you don't want to do it? He's like, well, I just got called to play for Demi Lovato. I'm going to try to do both gigs. Of course. So, just let me know how this goes. You can sub for me. Yeah. Right? And then I subbed for him, and it was actually my first time even playing key bass. Okay. And they told me, they're like, don't bring a bass. Really? It was just key bass? It was just key bass. Okay. And I got to the gig. Did you have to go buy one? Did you have a little rig? No. Okay. They just backlined me like a Moog. Okay. And I was like practicing the gig on my MIDI keyboard. Yeah. And I had like made a sub bass tone and all that kind of stuff. And I was producing by that point, so I was I could like get around. But I remember I got there early, and the keyboardist was this guy Derek Cobbs, who's really big now. Like I think he plays for Charlie Puth now. Ooh, okay. Yeah, he's done super well for himself. So shout out to Derek Cobbs, because he was the guy that like really saved me on the gig, because I think he was the key. He would go back and forth between key bass and keys. Okay. And basically the keyboardist was leaving, so he was taking over keys, and then they were looking for a bass player, so now I'd be key bass player, I guess. Yeah. And basically he set me up with all my tones, and then he's like, you have to tune the Moog. And I didn't know that a keyboard would go out of tune, so that was just like mind blowing for me. I've never played key bass. I don't know that world. Really? Yeah. It's a fun world. Yeah. Because you can really overplay on a key bass, and everyone is so into it. I don't need another instrument to do that on. Like key bass is fun because it's like the attack isn't percussive; it's smooth. Yeah. So you literally can just get away with murder. Right. and you do the wee with your thumb.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks it's the coolest shit in the world. Like key bass is such a funny instrument to me. I love it.
Okay.
But it's a fun one. And yeah, so that was I flew up to San Francisco. I played an instrument I'd never played before live.
But you knew the parts. You worked out all the parts
Yeah.
and everything. Okay.
And then
I mean, of course you knew the parts. That's a dumb question. Like you had shedded the parts, not on a key bass, is what I meant.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I also shed them on my MIDI keyboard.
Right.
So
okay.
I wasn't just like totally winging it.
Yeah.
But it was still pretty nerve-wracking. And then I come back from the gig, and I don't hear from Miguel for a few months. And I was like, I guess I didn't do that good of a job, whatever.
Right.
I come back, and then this guy, Steve Octave, this music director from London, calls me. And he goes, hey, people in town say that you're pretty good. I have this artist that I'm MDing named Cher Lloyd. I want you to come. It's basically between you and this other dude.
Okay.
What have you been doing lately?
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, well, I just got back from San Francisco with Miguel. And
Yeah.
I'd literally just done that.
Right.
And I had something cool to say. And he goes, oh, so you're doing stuff out here? And I was like, I guess, yeah.
I just
He
did
goes,
that.
He goes, I think you're the guy. And then,
Okay.
and then, so Cher Lloyd was like on X Factor or America's Got Talent. She was on one of those kind of shows in Britain.
Okay.
And then that was really my first gig out here, my first consistent gig.
In LA.
Yeah, well, we were flying. It was basically like New York, LA, Toronto, just like doing spot dates,
Okay.
like TV kind of stuff.
Promotionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So you moved out here, and then you got Miguel, or you got Miguel through New York, and then moved out here with Miguel.
I moved out here and was doing like church gigs and all that kind of stuff for like the first year.
Okay.
And then Steve Styles, I messaged him on Facebook, and then that's when that happened.
That's how that happened.
But I was hustling, going to Libertine and all the for like the first year.
Sure.
And then I got the call from Miguel. Then I come back. Then I start playing with Cher Lloyd. And then here's where Miguel comes back in. I'm doing South by Southwest with Cher Lloyd, and Miguel's opening for Cher Lloyd.
Oh.
And Miguel's like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm playing with Cher Lloyd. And he knows he's opening for her.
Yeah.
And
so that just puts you in another.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then literally that weekend, he's like, hey, I got a bunch of dates. You want to do them?
Killing.
And then
Okay.
5 years later,
All right, we're going to hit pause on the conversation with Jayme. That is episode 1. I think we can all agree that it really is a safe space, huh? Can we just take a minute, let that soak in? Can we marinate in that? This is a safe space. Hashtag safe space. Stick around for the second half of the conversation in episode 2, and Jayme and I will continue to rant and air frustrations about music and things related to it. Thanks. Thanks.